So, good afternoon, dear friends, and everybody connected to this webinar. And I am very happy that today we have our dear Gita Desai as a guest to give us the wisdom of her work of Ayurveda Unveiled. The Gita Desai is the master in the documentary movies, and she created the trilogy of the Unveiled, the Yoga Unveiled, Gandharva Veda Unveiled, and the latest is Ayurveda Unveiled. And it's such a precious documentary movies, and I can say these are the best movies made upon this ancient science of life about yoga, Ayurveda, and Gandharva Veda. And it's very precious to everybody, for all public, and especially those who are interested to get more knowledge in this ancient science. And Gita Desai is working all her life, devoted to spread that knowledge through her work and her expertise. And over 15 years, she was working on this trilogy. And she wants everybody to enjoy her work. And I would like to invite our dear Raj Srivastava, Raj Kumar Srivastava, Ambassador of India in Croatia. And we are happy that he is helping and organizing these webinars to spread this knowledge to everybody to address this webinar.
Thank you, Yogacharya Miklets. It's a pleasure to join this session again, which is usually now, with your help, we are able to organize it almost every fortnightly. And welcome to Ms. Desai for joining us today with a very important session on the hard and long work that you have put in this important area of bringing the wisdom, ancient knowledge, which is so relevant today and more so in this time of pandemic. So I think it is a good time that we are organizing this session, starting this, I think this is the first session of year 2022, which is the year of hope in terms of where we were previously, and hopefully this year will bring an end to the short-term misery that we had gone through in the last 2 years of COVID-19. With this knowledge of Ayurveda, I believe that it's important to take out the tenets which are relevant for our life, just to in terms of improving our lifestyle, because many of the problems related to COVID-19 have got accentuated because of lifestyle issues. And I think in that context, the relevance of Ayurveda has become more timely and more, I would say, urgent nature as compared to just a thing that you can do at your free time. We have more free time because of we are now compelled to avoid things which we can avoid. And in that sense, there is time, and there is also an urgency to learn about some of the basics of life. And Ayurveda is life science. So in that sense, it is very good. Even though your work of Ayurveda Unveiled was 2 years back, I believe, in 2019, but it has become even more relevant in today's time. So with those words, I would invite you to say, to present this particular session, and look forward to getting more wise in this session. Thank you.
Namaste to everybody, and thank you, Yadran Koji and Rajkumarji. It's an honor to be here presenting my work. Thank you for the wonderful introductions as well. And without taking too much of everybody's time, I think you've said it all, Rajkumarji, really very concisely, the importance and the profound wisdom that can be unleashed and should be unleashed, to overcome the misery, as you said, that we have all been facing in the last couple of years. But before we continue with the discussion, I think it would be appropriate if we just share the introduction, a chapter of the introduction to Ayurveda Unveiled, to Ayurveda with the audience. And then from there on, we can branch off into the discussion because they will have a certain context. So let's watch about 20 minutes of the first chapter, which just gives you a basic foundation to why and what the film's orientation is. And it's enjoyable. So everybody, please have a look, and then I'll be very happy to answer questions and also share whatever I've learned through my journey in the making of the film. So thank you again. Let's begin the viewing. Thanks.
That edge of recorded time, when men and gods merged and walked the lands of ancient India, reveals a remarkably matured civilization. A culture that took birth in the bosom of Mother Nature, nurturing it like her own. The compass of Indic thought touched life at all its points, consciously curating a people of magnificent promise. Collectively, they strived to examine and uplift human well-being from every angle. Harmony within and without. And so it was with Ayurveda.
Life is a combination of time and energy. A certain amount of time, a certain amount of energy is what life is. When we say Ayurveda, we are talking about both the dimensions of how to enhance time and energy. This needs a very comprehensive approach.
The sense of Veda is knowledge which is embracing, encompassing, all-inclusive. Mastered in identity, not in informational nature. So Veda always means this, deep knowledge which is held in this way, complete and experiential in identity. And Ayu is life. It's not just lifespan, it is not just the way we live, but it is life force itself as a universal power which sustains the material world and which sustains life forms and which develops all of the gradations of evolution. And it is that which is being embraced in the Ayurveda.
What Ayurveda says, coming out of this thousands of years of full comprehensive understanding of everything that is we are actually a conscious feeling and thinking human beings. We are not our bodies. We are not chemical factories. So what we feel, what we think, what we live, whether we are aware of it or not, is reflected in our body.
Ayurveda's movement in the West has been behind the yoga movement. People enter yoga just to feel fit, or they think it's a trendy thing to do, it's a new form of exercise. But if they stay with it, then it opens the window to a bigger reality. The same has been true of Ayurveda. Having watched the movement in the last 30 years, is it doesn't matter why you come. You might come because you have bronchial asthma, but ultimately the journey takes you to understanding yourself as the self of the universe. So I don't think it's possible to separate these two, yoga and Ayurveda. They have their origin in the knowledge, the supreme knowledge of the self.
The purpose of Ayurveda is to refine the system, to eliminate the doshas, as they call it. The impurities have to go, have to go, have to go. It's the impurities which overshadow the functioning of those laws of nature, which are responsible for the transformation of consciousness into matter.
This Ayurveda achieves by the cleansing of the body, by the elimination of the disease, by bringing a certain relative stability of the mind.
Yoga is all about alignment with the rest of the existence. It is looking at a spiritual dimension. Ayurveda is looking at more the physical well-being.
And for that matter, all Indian sciences are also like this, that if you learn even sculpture, music, they all take you to that state of relative stability of the mind from where the practice of yoga becomes possible. According to your vasanas, according to your, what you can say, orientation and attitudes, you have multiple entries into the various domains of knowledge, but they all finally merge in yoga, from where that higher spiritual elevation is possible.
India's sages of yore proposed that, from the galaxy's infinite to our minutest cells, Mother Nature's laws govern with equipoise. Our bodies mirror within all that's in the outer world. Nothing is exempt from this total embrace. A life aligned with the rhythms of the universe enables our lesser internal cosmos to function in harmony with the greater macrocosm.
Ayurveda takes us from simple things like diet and lifestyle and daily routine and emotional interactions slowly and very gently to a deeper understanding of the self.
There's something very alluring about a comprehensive ancient knowledge that also is following common sense. If it's not common sense, it's probably not Ayurveda.
It's not really a science which goes through the analytical aspect. It's a science in its own right where a lot of intuition is involved.
It is not about prevention and cure, it's about making the body work at its best.
You say yes to life, you say yes to things that are supportive of you. And there is inner intelligence within you that is universal that will show you what is right for you.
The Indian civilization saw the spirit in everything. India's spirituality was life-embracing and life-transforming. It saw matter as the veil or the form of spirit, and spirit as the essence, meaning, purpose, truth of all matter. And the bridging of these two as its highest purpose, as the meaning of life itself. And therefore, in whatever field they took up, it was with the aim of going all the way through to the deepest spiritual essential truth and principle and meaning, and to draw that out into the widest, richest, most detailed expression in beauty, in power, in harmony, in knowledge.
It was Max Muller who said that the Western man has retired into the capsule of his head. And it is in only India that the whole body lives. When people are walking barefoot on the earth, how can they not be alive?
A little over a century ago, when yoga left India for Western shores, it did not carry Ayurveda along. Today, wherever yoga is, Ayurveda is just a few steps behind. Like yoga, Ayurveda has not escaped the jaws of commerce and dilution.
purpose is to serve humanity, but right now humanity is serving commerce. So once this has happened, you have no choices. You have to pop a pill and go to work.
Ayurveda has to a large degree degenerated into a, green pill delivery system.
There is a proverb in English, you can't buy health across the counter of a chemist's shop.
We have to take responsibility for it ourselves. 1800 years ago, there was all these different forms of Christianity. That was deacon, priest, bishop. And the idea was you had to go through them to get to God. Then 100 years ago, another one came up. It was the MD. You have to go to the MD to get to God. So the MD was the priest. Now, 20 years ago, this other priest has arisen, and it's this little bottle of supplements on the shelf of the health food store. Oh, if only I had that, then I'll be okay. No, it's a priest. It's still a priest.
India ultimately is an idea. India is not a geographical place. Wisdom is universal. Wisdom concerns all of humanity, which is the wisdom which resides within each one of us. This is something that should not be forgotten.
Ayurveda is one of the most ancient and most comprehensive system of healthcare that is known to humanity.
Just comes from an understanding that there is no separation between what is outside and what is inside. It's all one energy.
Om Shri Dhanvantre Namaha.
All the texts mention that Ayurveda originated from Indra. And Indra is the link between the human mind and divinity. And Indra himself acquires this knowledge from the Ashwini Devas, who get it from Prajapati, and Prajapati gets it from Brahma. And Brahma is being the creator. What Ayurveda points out is that Ayurveda is inherent in creation. Like it's a knowledge that is present in every living form. And if you look at it very deeply, this is a symbolic account of the origin of Ayurveda. All the Ayurvedic texts say that Ayurveda was discovered in a higher state of consciousness, not our mundane level of awareness.
The Harappan culture was the largest urban civilization in the ancient world of the 3rd millennium BCE, and it showed an extensive development of town planning, directional orientation of buildings, sophisticated drainage and water systems. There was also a high level of arts and crafts and trade. So it was obviously an advanced civilization, perhaps more advanced than the other civilizations of the time. So naturally it had to have some medical or healing tradition that went along with that. And there is evidence of the worship of plants like the Ashwata tree, the Brahma bull, the use of the cow, the fires, the sacred fires. So there is evidence of the Vedic culture and probably evidence of the Ayurveda.
If you go back far enough in history, that is a few thousand years, we find that India was known as a center of knowledge, and people from all over the world came to India for that knowledge. If we come a little closer to modern times, about 2000 years ago, for India that's close enough, we find in Rome, in Greece, in the rest of Europe, there is a connection with India which has a large component of trade, exchange of wealth. We find in Shakespeare subsequently, coming closer to modern times, that his hero in The Merchant of Venice suddenly becomes rich at the end of the story because his 3 ships from India have come back. In fact, Venice becomes the hub of European trade because that's the link point for the ships to connect to India. So you see in Europe this obsession to connect with India for wealth and for knowledge. Even Pythagoras records India as the land of knowledge, and he comes to India to study, goes back and establishes mystery schools where he teaches what he has learned. All of this shows you a sustained influence from India spanning the whole world. In fact, we find that in Europe, when there was the Renaissance, the trigger points for the Renaissance were all related to India. In philosophy, in mathematics, in the arts, and the evidence for that is so extensive. The greatest German philosophers of that period were reading the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and as you know, even the scientists who developed quantum mechanics were all well versed in Sanskrit and the Upanishads. So many of these concepts came into their formulations of quantum mechanics. And so this shows you a continued influence, which abruptly begins to drop, interestingly, when the British colonial rule spread in India. At that point, according to British records, India was producing 25% of global industrial output. Until at the point when the British left, we were down to something like 0 to 1% of global industrial output because they shut down India's industries. Turned India into a base for raw material for their industries and effectively siphoned off all the wealth from India. All of the Indian wealth went to sustain the British Empire. The moment they lost India, the empire collapsed. Taxation was so heavy, it went beyond 90% in some cases. And the result was driving India into abject poverty, collapse of all its industries and diversity, and even pushing its educational status down to something approaching zero. And it's this part of the declining phase that is highlighted in today's history. And people turn to India, oh, that's a third world country. It was not. For the last 9,000 years, it was a leader, a global leader, and had a massive influence on Europe. Until the end of the British Empire, it sustained the British Empire. And this is something quite remarkable, that even though external organizational structures were destroyed or suppressed, the knowledge was not entirely lost.
Ayurveda still permeates the life of Indians. Their parlance of well-being is infused with the Ayurvedic idiom, and it is fast achieving global dispersion.
If you try to understand Ayurveda only by using the instruments and the mindsets and the paradigms from your Western perspective, you will fail. Because Ayurveda offers another paradigm. And that paradigm can only be fully understood if one dives into that paradigm, or at least sniffs into that paradigm and tries to understand the system from within it.
Because science is based on methods that are still restricted to the level of the sense organs. And Ayurveda is, trans-sensory in that sense, at a very deeper level.
Is the ability to step into the unknown, to recognize that the invisible realm of consciousness is what we depend on to experience the visible realm.
In the worldview of the rishis, everything is sacred, everything is conscious, everything is worthy of respect, that consciousness is the supreme principle.
Everything is submerged, everything that exists is submerged into consciousness, into the vast field of everything that is, that was, will be, all the time.
I hope everybody enjoyed the little glimpse of the beginning of my documentary. It is a 5-hour testimonial on the profound tradition of Ayurveda, but this is just a basic understanding, very, very kind of a stepping stone understanding of where it was, where it began, as much as man knows, and what happened really, because a lot of times people ask this question, and I wonder, before I made the films, I did wonder as well, as a resident of US, because I was away from India for some time, that why, if there's so much knowledge and ancient wisdom, what happened? Why are so many people sick there, and why is there poverty where there was so much brilliance of minds and genius and people who could, propose and propound traditions like yoga, Ayurveda, and many others that are universal, timeless. What happened? So I wanted to kind of throw the light on the knowledge systems and how they were kind of under attack, So when a very profound but delicate at the same time system is systematically, geared towards attrition by outside forces, this is what happens. So, but it's never too late, and it's just such a pleasure to see how Ayurveda is, even in a country like Croatia and many others, the European countries, Africa, it's just catching fire, and rightfully so. It is the need of the hour, as Rajkumarji said. It is the need of the hour, and nothing better for the answers that COVID has put forth, in front of us as to what we were doing and what we are doing. How can we change it and empower each one of us through a minute-to-minute awareness of how we live? In a very simple way, wherever we are on planet Earth, it does not matter. You don't need to be in India. This was the vision of the sages, the keepers and the architects of the traditions wanted these knowledge systems to be for the universe. If you read the scriptures, words like Manav Jati and Vishwa and, universal and humanity, and those are the words they use. They haven't addressed India or only the citizens of that country, although it took birth there. There's no doubt the bedrock and the mother land of these traditions that we are talking about. India was that, but it was meant for you, because just simply speaking, from the experience of COVID, unless you are healthy, I'm not healthy. Unless my neighbor is healthy, there is no way I can be completely healthy. And if we get that, we should by now, through the pandemic situation, Ayurveda knew that the sages knew that everybody has to be empowered and healthy, so that there's a better life for everybody, whether it's a plant, animal, to human beings. So it's wonderful to see all of you here, and I hope the message through my films reaches more and more people. So again, I want to thank Yadran Koji and Rajkumarji for giving me this opportunity. Truly, thank you. I'm open to taking any questions. Shall we proceed with the audience posing the questions, or I don't know how you would like to conduct this the next half an hour or so.
Yes, dear Gita ji, thank you for your beautiful introduction. And this movie that you showed is really so much full of wisdom and also artistic. So we enjoyed very much in such a beautiful presentation of India. And I feel everybody is very eager to go to India as soon as possible to enjoy that beauty of nature and beautiful people and the wisdom which is there. And as we know, the sun is rising from the east and moving to the west. So like this, the knowledge is always rising from the east. So the India was always the source of knowledge for the whole world. And then always that knowledge was moving to the West, like the sun. So, and illuminating, bringing the light and nourishing the life. So like this again and again, every time sun is rising, new time, and more waves of knowledge are coming from India. And also through your work and through this documentary movie. And I have just questioned, this documentary movie is 5 hours. It's a lot of informations there, not only general informations, but also some practical suggestions how to live healthy life. And so whether this movie is available for the general public, not only for those, whether you focused more for the people who are interested for yoga Ayurveda, and or it is for a general public that everybody can enjoy in that sense. You need to unmute just the.
Sorry about that. Yeah. My objective in making the 3 films, and I could keep going, by the way, I could make many more if I find people who want to support it financially. And my husband, my kind husband, funded all these 3 films, and that was a monumental undertaking, budget-wise and time-wise, etc. But I'm very happy that they came through. The objective was to make it for every citizen and really taste the profoundness and the wisdom, and above all, to take away the commercial aspect of these traditions, so that they see the essence and the spirit behind everything that has been proposed, whether it's in yoga, Ayurveda, or Raga, which is, all 3 subjects are very dear to me, by the way, the Indian classical music, yoga, Ayurveda. So I chose these 3 topics. But the knowledge is for everybody. The way we edited it and the way you heard people speak, for example, in the 20 minutes, anybody who doesn't know much about India or the traditions, they would understand, I think. And I have people from all over the world who are watching it, and a lot of them are just curious intellectuals who are very interested, and then they become followers. They adapt, lifestyle. They adopt different wisdom points from the films, and slowly their way of looking at life changes. So yeah, if I could, that's the answer. I don't want to be too long-winded, so that we can have different questions, but it's meant for everybody. And I only chose, in all the 3 films, it was a strategy. I only chose people who were very eloquent in English. I wanted to avoid subtitles so that it's easier for everybody to, go through the film in a very, it shouldn't be stressful that you have to read every time and all. So that was another strategy. And the second one is very important, is that I wanted to show the life of India. See, these traditions are not apart, they're not divorced from everyday life. The way the sages, the brilliance of the sages never ceases to amaze me. Every single day, how clever. Every time I cook or every time I listen to music or simple things, I feel like, wow, how wonderfully they intertwined it in life. And that's what we should really take away from the film. Because unless it's easy, unless it's seamless, and we don't have to think about it, and then still be empowered by practicing those little nuggets that they've given us, thousands of nuggets that we can spread through a day in our lives. So I wanted to show that life in India, where and how it's intertwined in my best possible way. So therefore, it's almost like a travelogue. People say that so many practitioners, especially with the pandemic now, I didn't realize it then, will never be able to go to India, will never be able to travel to India to see the motherland of these traditions. So the film takes them there. And I also have very old footage from the 30s, 20s. We bought footage from the films division of India. So I also took them back into history as much as I could, through photographs, through live footage, and then came to the present day. Village life, farms, animals, Mother Nature is completely intact in every chapter, and reminding people that we are one, which is the tenet of Ayurveda yoga. We can, right now the problem is we are not one. That's why the pandemic. Man thinks he's the greatest and he's the only one that matters. So here we are with a huge problem, but we can learn. So does that answer your question? Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. And I would like to invite others, those who are present, to ask questions. And it's a rare opportunity to get the answer from the source.
I will start, if I may. Namaskar. Martina, I sneaked into Croatian friends from Prague, Czech Republic. Namaskar, Gita. And I would like to ask Gita, actually, two questions. One is, you obviously knew about Ayurveda before you started to make the movie, but I would be interested to know what has surprised you while making the movie in Ayurveda, and the other part is in India about Ayurveda, those two things.
A very good question. Namaste, Martina. And I don't know if everybody connected, but Martina speaks so beautifully. She's featured wonderfully in the film. So I think my true introduction, Martina, was when I started interacting with you back in Connecticut. The Ayurveda that came into my life, I did not label it as Ayurveda. As I grew up with my mother, with my grandma, it was all over, right? In the kitchens, to healing, to lifestyles. But I think you systematized it in my head, as really as I met you and I had consultations, etc. So, and I was blown away even back then, because you showed me how profound it is, in the sense from your own knowledge system. Honestly, this was the way it all began in my heart. But during the making of the film, which is your question, what surprised me is basically, although I knew this, it was so evident that the whole plan of the sages, it never ceases to amaze me to this day. And I just keep talking about it. People get tired, but I don't care. I just want to share the wisdom and the grand picture that they had for humanity. That unless we connect these dots for them, there's never going to be a good life, in the sense, the nature and us, microcosm, macrocosm, the living with the rhythms, and then how it ties in with yoga, and how Indian classical music has the same principles, the Vedas being the bedrock. So that became extremely clear. I mean, although I knew it in my head because I'd made yoga Unveiled and raga Unveiled, I had studied, researched, but this film really brought it together, where this is all I want to talk about when I meet people. Really, I don't care about the details of Ayurveda and all. I want to talk about this interconnectedness and the wisdom of the sages in doing so. So that was the biggest learning. And in India, okay. What can I say? For Indians, mostly the modern middle class to upper middle to rich, the wind blows from the west, and I've shown it in Yoga Unveiled very clearly, and that's why Swami Vivekananda ended up in Chicago, because he thought it was his understanding as well that if the wind blows from the west, the Indians will wake up and see the value of the Vedas, which was fading because of the British education system, etc., etc. And the same is going on today. I mean, there's not much of a difference because there's American colonization. I don't want to get into the politics of it, but the advent of the internet is the American colonization, so lifestyles and all. So, but India has woken up to the value, which is fine, even if it comes through the commerce and all that, it's okay. It's a good stepping stone. Like America learned from the yoga mat, people become quieter and calmer, and they want to know the deeper dimensions of yoga when they practice just the physicality of it. So nothing wrong, but that's kind of sad because we grew up with it. If I start eating fast food and whatever it is, I think I'm more to blame than a Westerner, I must say, Martina, because I grew up with the wisdom. I was, it was all around us. How could we throw away the baby with the water? We did it so quickly. I don't care what the British did or so. We have a mind of our own. We're intelligent. We've been to college. We have degrees, but so this is my understanding. So I could go on, but I hope I answered your question. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, it's a beautiful reflection on that, but I can say we are really happy with the Prime Minister Modi, who is really cherishing the tradition of the India and supporting so much traditional knowledge to go into education and in all areas, even to the companies, to the people, and in the schools, and so that knowledge is present at every home. So I think this is great awakening in India, also coming back to its original value of the culture. And the culture is something which is cherishing the life. It is based on the specific laws of nature, which are guiding life in some part of the planet Earth. As we know, the India Veda Bhumi, they call Veda Bhumi. It means it is the land of the knowledge, because on the planet Earth, somehow that configuration of the land is similar like the structure of the Veda, the shape, and with all the values which are in the soil, like you have Mount Everest, the Kailash at the top, and then you have Kanyakumari at the south, and all the story of the human body with all the chakras, the Sahasrara and Muladhara, from Kailash up to Kanyakumari, and moving of the Shakti back from the Kailash with Shiva and moving down and staying there in Kanyakumari and praying to come back up to the Shiva. It's all the story of enlightenment and all the rivers, main rivers, Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, like the three main nadis on the Pranamaya Kosha and their crossings and all the places. So on a physical level, it has that power. And that power gets enlivened more and more. So I feel it's going good direction, everything. Thank you very much for showing some historical background of India. And it's beautiful to see how people were living in the villages before, when that knowledge was very fully enlivened and Vaidyas and all the, I heard that in the villages, the Vaidyas, they had better salary if they didn't have any work than those who are very busy healing the people. It means they were so successful in teaching the people as a prevention, so that nobody get ill, so that they don't have any work, then they get a big reward. But today on the West, they think the medical system is much more successful if they have more hospitals. They are building more and more hospitals. It is failing of the medical system. So it should be less and less hospitals. This is advancement in the medical care. So thank you. And please, some other people, if you have questions, please ask.
I think I can make some comments, which is starting from Yogacharya Miklitz. You are right in a way that when we look at hospitals, they are actually sick care, they are not health care. And that's why in the new project of Ayushman Bharat, the government of India is actually building by side all the allopathic or the Western medicine hospitals, now the traditional medicine care centers, so that people, when they are healthy, come for that part, and when they are sick, they go to the right side. In the sense that we need to be ensuring that we don't have to actually end up in hospital. And that's why this Ayushman Bharat project is devoted towards making our traditional healthcare system stronger. And I was very happy to see in my personal visit to All India Institute of Ayurveda in 2019, July, when I found a lot of people taking consultations there. One of the key principles of Ayurveda is that each of us are different in terms of our make, and the lot of genetic memory that we all carry makes us different. But ultimately, that's all united, because where we started was all unified source. So that's why when we treat each of us for the imbalances that we have created because of our own practices and our practices of our ancestors, we need to treat it based on individual systems. And that's why no one medicine can fit all bodies. And that's why Ayurvedic consultations is based on assessment of each person based on its composition and recent imbalances that has been created. So that's very important to understand why Ayurveda system allows that individuality, and then treat that individuality to make it more balanced as the unified source. One more point you mentioned about Ms. Desai, about the wisdom of Swami Vivekananda. And he was asked this question, that what is the origin of Vedas? And he said that, it's like when the God or whosoever created this universe, created the user manual. So Vedas are user manual. It's very difficult to pinpoint who actually wrote them, because what you see in evidence is somebody who is actually tried to give the interpretation of Vedas. But who originally wrote it? It's almost like universe was created and user manual was created. And that's why most of the problems that we face today, if you find the way to interpret the Vedas, you will find solutions there. Another thing that he very, very beautifully said, that whatever variety we see in this world is actually the manifestation of the original unity. And that, what he said, actually inspired and astonished Nikola Tesla, one of the Croatian very famous scientist, physicist, who has been credited with the knowledge of electricity, what we see today. And also he was trying, before Einstein, to find the unified theory of physics. And he said that the unified theory of physics actually believes that at one point of time you can find all forces coming from one source. And that is why you have so much of variety, but there must be one source. If it is not there, then the mind of God is very convoluted. So there is so much of wisdom in our Vedas, and if we can interpret it, then we can actually understand the potential of a human being is much larger than mind and body. And that's where this consciousness comes in, which you have depicted through your interlocutors in the video that or the film that you have prepared. Deepak Chopra, for example, is one of the prime guru today who explains that consciousness is more important than just the mind part of what we actually focus upon. And that's where I think Ayurveda and yoga explains that you can quickly reach to higher potentials for which we are human beings. Otherwise, we could have been animals also. Thank you. Thank you so much for giving this exposure to those who were not aware about your movie and work, and those who knew about it to know you personally through this digital means. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Beautifully said. I just want to add one point, if I may, is that the simplicity of Ayurveda and the simplicity of the solutions of how not to get sick are available to everybody. And that was the sage, the power of the sages, I think, how they brought simple measures. We don't even have to be individualized approach to it, because I remember when I interviewed Dr. Martina, she did mention that there's a whole, there are whole tenets that apply to everybody. For example, dinacharya, waking up with the sun or being one with the rhythms of nature, are good for everybody, no matter what the prakriti is or the constitution is. So I think if one starts there, there's probably no need for even a consultation, hopefully. Sicknesses will always be there, but the power in the simplicity, the simple measures of dinacharya, ratricharya, ritucharya, you know, the daily routines applies to everybody. And this is what if I were given the power to spread anything about Ayurveda, that is what I would really talk about. Because lifestyles are messed up. We don't wake up with the sun. We don't eat when we're hungry. We don't sit down when we're hungry. We don't drink when we're water when we're thirsty. We don't sleep in time. Those are so simple. And yet people have lost it. You get those back and the balance most likely is there for everybody. The imbalances go away. So if we could, and they're free of charge, completely available to all. So I wish there's the total focus first goes on that, because there's no money there to be spent or resources. And I think we, you know, the healers, the keepers make it very, very complex sometimes, you know, which is not fair to the public, especially Western minds who are so new to the whole tradition and the context. Give the simplicity of Ayurveda, Ayush, and every keeper should really promote the simple measures first, because they are profound. They are the way out initially. And then, of course, sicknesses will be there. Individualized help has to be there. Emergencies, allopathy has to be there. But a big chunk will go away of disorders, a big chunk. And quickly, it'll do it. Thank you. Thank you for listening to my passionate, it is almost time, but I'm happy to take any more questions.
Maybe I can ask one question. I would like to know how many people were working on that, or is it all done by you? And in general, how big support did you have from outside?
Good question. All three films were basically my my kind of undertaking. I had very, very slim teams, very slim, because the budget, obviously, we were funding it. So of course, professional camera crew, professional sound editors, engineers, editors. But I would say 90% of the creation of the film, in terms of the script, in terms of the vision, the outlines, what I wanted in, and I sat with the editors day in, day out, 16, 17 hours a day when the last 1 year, 1.5 years of editing. I worked with the music directors in what kind of music. All the music for the three films was commissioned by me, by composers and musicians in India. So I sat with them. and decided what folk tunes, which ragas, what rhythms, what we need. I worked with the graphic designer in terms of the chapters and all the graphics that you see. So yes, I had a lot of fun through this project because because we were spending our money, I also wanted to really play in the sense of my love for music, my love for colors, my love for nature. I brought it all in and worked with what I could do, because if I made a mistake, it was my mistake in my film. So I was not reporting to anybody, but it was a big responsibility. So to be true to such profound traditions, I had to be very careful what I put in there and how accurate, etc. But the one beautiful thing I want to add is that there was grace upon my projects, because I have no film background. I was mostly a homemaker before I started Yoga Unveiled. I didn't even know how to operate a computer. That was back in 2002. I didn't own a cell phone, but I had a lot of passion and vision and the creative, power and the staying power. Physically, I'm very strong, so I could live through it. It's very, very difficult to go through filming all over the world, and with small budgets, it is. But there was grace. There's no other way these could have happened, and such great people could have said yes to me to be interviewed, because I didn't know most of them. Cold calls.
Yeah, thank you very much for the answer.
Yeah.
And in case that we want to contact you later after the meeting, is it possible?
Yes, definitely. I'm most available with whatever limited knowledge I have or any help you need. I'm here. So Ilinka will provide you with my contact information on the chat. So definitely, please feel free, and do watch the films. They're available for the world. Unveiledtrilogy.com is where the 3 films are available.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, is there some more questions?
Yes, I want to repeat one more time that I'm really very happy to connect people with once they watch the film, they want to meet Martina or anybody else, or any kind of help they need with questions or so. I'll be more than happy to reach them, or they can reach me. Yeah.
Thank you very much, dear Gita, for your kindness and your open heart with which you are living and sharing and giving, and it's beautiful. So we are very thankful for this afternoon, for this webinar. And I would like His Excellency Raj Kumar Srivastava to give us his final greeting.
Yeah, I hope to meet all of you someday.
Yes,
Hopefully
absolutely.
We'll have a screening. Thank you.
Yeah, in fact, that's my final words also, because, in October, just 4 months back, we had organized the International Yoga and Ayurveda Conference physically in Zagreb with the participation of about 200 people, including 40 experts from 6 or 7 different countries, including India. So maybe next time when we get that opportunity, you will be able to come and we can meet physically. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll be honored. Thank you, and be well, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And we would like very much to invite also Martina as a great expert on Ayurveda. And we are happy that you are with us also today. So thanks everybody who were present and enjoying this beautiful webinar by Gita Desai. And see you next time with some other topic. Thank you very much, everybody.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you very much, dear Yadran.